And most of the time, it really felt like people were operating in good faith and using their unique skill sets for the good of everyone, actually. Ruth Todd, our program director, worked with a massive range of stakeholders. Here's Ruth on how this made a difference and how it felt to be able to finally share our success in person.
Yeah, gosh, lots. So public, private, consultant, contractor, official, minister, pretty much every flavour you could imagine. And everybody brought something to the party. And for me, I remember standing when we went to Kew Gardens and we had our moment in the sun, having a garden party after everyone had at least had their first vaccine and most people had had two. And we'd been given the sort of Freedom Day, I think they called it, back in July 21, didn't they? And we all met for the very first time. I remember standing there and I didn't recognise everybody who was there, but I recognised most of them. And I could look at every individual and remember something they'd done that was special. And there wasn't a person that I looked at that I couldn't say hadn't made a difference. Everyone did their bit and everyone tried their level best to make us good. And that's incredible, isn't it? So millions of different types of stakeholders, I'm sure, and in our own team, lots of individuals who, through their own personalities, played a huge part in our success. So they got skills, but they'd also got, they brought with them their personal style, and that made a big difference for us too, I think.
I don't think I'll forget that day for a long time. It was such a lovely day. I think the experience really hit home for many of us around that point. Just meeting up with so many people who had a shared understanding of what we'd achieved and knew what it was like as a project, all put our hearts and souls into. It was really heartwarming.
And again, meeting people and speaking to them in a slightly more social context reminds you how varied the whole task force was. However many people we personally work with as individuals, it could never capture the full range of everyone making this happen. I think the scale of diversity was something almost none of us were used to or could be ready for, and that made us even more proud of what we'd achieved. I asked Sarah Mackman, who was assigned to us from the RAF, if this experience was unusual for her as a member of the military. I know military operations often work closely with government, but I'm not really sure how different this was from the range of people you would work with on a more everyday project.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, there were a few other military people who'd also, like me, been seconded in to help support and reinforce. But and I have worked with a lot of civil servants, and I still do now, from across government. So there was a large proportion of those in the vaccine task force from different government departments who'd all volunteered or been sought out for their expertise to come in. But you're absolutely right, Sue. What was really different here was, the pharmaceutical experts, the medical experts, the manufacturing experts, the supply chain experts, a lot of even the business management expertise being brought in from a whole range of other parts of government and industry. It created such a diverse mix of people and backgrounds that you're right, I'd never worked with before, and nor did my friendships and other hobbies bring me into contact with that range of people in a lot of those areas.
Here we've been talking about the diversity of professional backgrounds and expertise, but I think some of us found quite an unusual mix in other respects too. A few of us have noticed that the vaccine task force seemed to have quite a high proportion of female leaders. I know Geraldine Eaton found this too. Was it out of the ordinary in pharmaceutical industry? Here's Geraldine.
I mean, across the pharma industry, there are lots of women in senior positions, but the very senior positions do tend to be male dominated. So it was interesting to see that you had a slightly different mix. I've kind of racked my brain about why that should be, and I really can't think of one thing specific. Right people at the right time. Everybody within the team, whether male or female, was hardworking and very supportive of each other. I just wonder whether it happened like that or whether those that were the individuals who had the right leadership skills.
From my experience in manufacturing, having a lot of women in leadership roles was quite unusual. And it's hard to know which way round it was. Perhaps once you've got one or more assertive female leaders, that creates an environment where more want to join and more women feel comfortable stepping up. With Sarah's background in the military, leadership is all important, but I imagine it's still the case that many of those people in the day-to-day working life are men. Sarah spoke about how this was different for her as part of the vaccine task force.
So I'd never really experienced, as you say, working with that many women, and I just found it fantastic. I think I found, and these are real generalizations. I don't know whether it was the women that brought this to the task force or whether the task force attracted these kind of people, because a lot of the men on the team were very much like this, is the emotional empathy, is going back to that, listening to the expert in the room, calling on that expert when that topic came up, listening, the desire to want to help others, to bring them in, and to say it's that cognitive, it's that diversity bit, but genuine, to make that a strength. I was so proud to see it in action, and felt so lucky to be part of that, and to see so many women laughing and delivering at pace something so incredible. And it wasn't just the women, it was the men as well. But I, as I say, I've not seen that kind of connectivity and work dynamics. I've not seen that before. And I don't know whether it was the task force. I don't know how much of it was the task, that common real sense of purpose and aim, in it together, come on, we've got to get this done. And how much of it was the diversity of backgrounds, and how much of it was the women there. But I do think the women that were there, certainly, they're wanting to work with each other and to talk with, not at, played a huge part.
Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now. We look forward to sharing the next episode of The Gift of the Jab with you soon.